towards the Lin family home as remembered, this world wasn't much different from the original, just populated with flying fire-breathing people. And even some pets from another world. As I approached the grand gates of the Lin household, my heart filled with anticipation. Upon entering, the fragrant aroma kept wafting over. Even though I had understood the enormity of the Lin family, seeing it with my own eyes still left me in awe. True to being one of the 4 great families of Kyoto, after spending 3 hours consulting, I headed towards the room in my memory. Unconsciously I arrived at a delicate door. Just as I was about to push it open, I heard a clanging sound from inside. Perhaps there was a maid inside, but surely there couldn't be any assassination attempts, right? With this thought, I paused momentarily. After a brief contemplation, I softly stated, as a transmigrator, I should be favored by fate. Any danger I encounter should logically turn into safety. Having said that, I no longer worried and pushed the door open. Su Qingwan's eyes were filled with shock. She had actually been reborn. In her previous life, she was the strongest empress of the Blue Star, unrivaled by anyone. Now, she found herself transformed back into Lin Xian's little maid. Far from feeling repulsed, she trembled slightly with surprise and delight. In this life, she vowed to break free from her own shackles and completely eliminate those despicable foes. However, she had an even more important task at hand. Indeed, after her rebirth, she had awakened a system, and the first task it assigned was for her to kill Lin Xian. The reward was a fragment of the god of slaughter's divine essence, something she had only heard of in her past life. But the system informed her that she couldn't use her special abilities or strength, no matter as the future empress. If she couldn't even kill a spoiled young master, what was the point of being reborn? If I kill Lin Xian, how can I escape unscathed? Su Qingwan finally voiced her concern. Do not worry, host, this system will ensure your safe escape. You only need to complete the task, the system reassured her. Su Qingwan nodded faintly. She didn't ask what the penalty for failure was, because there was simply no need to. Now she just had to wait for Lin Xian to return. With a creak, the light outside instantly shone on Su Qingwan's face. Lin Xian had just pushed open the door and was greeted by the sight of her squinting against the bright light. He then took the opportunity to scrutinize this little maid. Her hair like seaweed casually draped over her shoulders, her pale skin under the sunlight seemed even more like delicate porcelain. Her exquisite features were strikingly beautiful, especially the tear mole at the corner of her eye, which added a touch of icy allure. Not bad, Lin Xian murmured, appreciating the beautiful sight before him, occasionally nodding in approval. Feeling his eyes blatantly roaming over her, Su Qingwan felt a wave of discomfort. She slowly lowered her head to hide the coldness in her eyes. Young master, it's time to change your clothes, she said in a voice as gentle as water, snapping Lin Xian out of his reverie. He glanced at his somewhat tattered clothes. Had he not removed the bloodstains, they would surely have drawn much attention. Qingwan, go get my clothes, Lin Xian said casually, scanning the room before sitting on the bed. Waiting for Su Qingwan to prepare his attire, Su Qingwan's brow furrowed slightly. It was the first time she heard him address her in such a manner, and a trace of oddity flickered through her heart. Hadn't he always called her by her name before? Yet she didn't dwell on it, heading straight for the wardrobe. A hint of apology flashed in her eyes for a moment, but it was quickly suppressed. After all, he was just a spoiled young master, hardly worth her regret. With a calm expression, Su Qingwan reached into the wardrobe, feeling the cool touch of something. Her lips curved slightly, and then she hid it underneath Lin Xian's clothes. It's time to send you on your way, she thought. What's going on? Why can't I get out? A rattling noise echoed through the air as Su Qingwan realized she was stuck in the cabinet. What on earth was happening? Where is everyone? Lin Xian, hearing the noise, came looking, only to find his little maid missing. Looking down, he saw a round bare bottom sticking out, pertly raised and wiggling shamelessly. I think I'm stuck. Su Qingwan couldn't get out and had to ask for help in a low voice, but the thought of a lecher outside staring at her backside filled her with shame, and soon her face was burning red. What's wrong? Hearing Lin Xian's somewhat puzzled voice, Su Qingwan thought she had been discovered, her heart suddenly tightening. Lin Xian closely observed the wiggling behind, glanced at the narrow wardrobe, and then realized with a sudden insight, a hint of envy in his eyes. Oh Qingwan, how did you get such peachy buttocks? Teach me sometime, will you? Su Qingwan, hearing Lin Xian's words, shuddered violently, anger making her bump her head. There, what's the rush? Let this young master help you out, Lin Xian said, and Su Qingwan felt a pair of strong hands grasp her slender waist, making her body shiver and her ears turn red. This pervert. Please, just get me out, Su Qingwan said with a face full of humiliation, her disdain and disgust for Lin Xian deepening. Qingwan, it might hurt a bit, just endure it for a moment, it'll be over soon. Lin Xian felt like he was holding marshmallows, his grip loosened slightly, then with a bit of force he sank in deeper. Young master, please hurry. Su Qingwan's eyes filled with murderous intent. A proud empress, never before humiliated like this, she vowed to kill this debauchee. Suddenly Lin Xian pulled hard and Su Qingwan felt her body start to move backward, quickly freeing herself from the cabinet. Her face lit up with relief, eager to forget that embarrassing pose. Qingwan, be careful, don't fall on me. Due to the excessive force, Lin Xian began to fall uncontrollably, but not before he cast a concerned look at Su Qingwan, who might fall too. Su Qingwan, secretly pleased, even using a bit of her martial strength, pressed heavily towards Lin Xian. Humph, crush you, you pervert. How could this empress ever be crushed beneath you? But just as she thought this, her foot suddenly twisted, and then her body fell in an extremely strange position, landing right behind Lin Xian. No way. Su Qingwan's pupils dilated, her mind not even having time to be shocked before her body heavily hit the ground. Since she had used some force just now, she involuntarily let out a muffled groan, but that wasn't the end, as Lin Xian also fell right on top of her. Feeling her stomach pressed heavily by Lin Xian's backside, her murderous intent couldn't be contained any longer, almost becoming tangible. Absolutely, she must kill this man. Suddenly, with a clatter that instantly snapped both their attentions back, Su Qingwan's face changed in an instant. As her gaze flickered to the side, she caught sight of a dagger gleaming ominously. Observing Lin Xian's dark and unpredictable expression, Su Qingwan's heart skipped a beat. She quietly gathered strength in her hands, fixating on every move Lin Xian made. Even the fact that Lin Xian was still nonchalantly sitting on her stomach seemed momentarily forgotten. Lin Xian, perhaps too comfortable in his position, did not think of getting up at first. The sound of the cold weapon falling had caught his attention abruptly. Qingwan, truly you are a remarkable maid, he commented as he stood up, picked up the dagger and gently caressed its sharp blade, quite pleased with himself. Sharp enough, he murmured. Su Qingwan slowly stood up, her fists clenched and a dangerous glint in her eyes. Just as she thought about how it could be used to slice fruit, she saw Lin Xian actually walk over to the table and start peeling a peach. Speaking of peaches, I'm actually quite craving one. Qingwan, would you like some? Lin Xian asked earnestly as he ate, holding the sharp dagger, his expression a mix of sincerity and naivety. Su Qingwan's body relaxed slightly and she let out an awkward laugh. No thank you, enjoy it, young master. Watching him relish the peach, Su Qingwan wondered if he might actually be a fool. Lin Xian savored the world's peaches, commenting with relish, sweet enough, juicy enough. Whether intentionally or not, he stared intently at her as he spoke, making Su Qingwan feel a flush of embarrassment. Qingwan, I heard you've also awakened your special ability. How is it? Being my maid, you must be at least SSS tier, right? Lin Xian suddenly asked with a hint of interest. Su Qingwan was speechless. What do you mean, being your maid? She thought, annoyed. He was so full of himself, despite awakening the weakest F tier ability, and still acted so arrogantly. Indeed, she had awakened an SSS tier ability, and thinking of this, she wanted to put Lin Xian firmly in his place. Lifting her head slightly, she feigned indifference to answer the young master. Qingwan indeed has awakened an SSS tier ability. She emphasized SSS tier, and after she finished, she could already imagine Lin Xian's dumbfounded expression. However, Lin Xian simply nodded lightly. SSS tier, not bad. At least you haven't disgraced me. I wouldn't want people saying that my maid is just a vase. Watching Lin Xian talk with such authority, Su Qingwan felt an itch in her teeth with frustration. How dare he, an F tier nobody'd be so picky. Shouldn't you be secretly delighted to have an SSS level maid? Shouldn't there be a glow of pride on your face? What's with that look of slight disdain? Am I not worthy as your empress? Even with her past life's experience as an empress, she had never seen someone as peculiar as Lin Xian. Ultimately, she chalked it up to him just putting on a brave front, all for the sake of saving face. What kind of special ability is it? Is it powerful? Lin Xian asked again. Su Qingwan replied calmly, young master, it's an ice element ability, absolute zero, mediocre at best. Although it can't compare to me, it barely qualifies her to be my little maid. Su Qingwan had grown numb to Lin Xian's boasting. All she wanted now was to see his face when he revealed his F-level ability in front of everyone. Would he still look as unperturbed as he does now? Just thinking about him getting embarrassed brought a slight smile to her face. Qingwan, why are you standing there grinning foolishly? Come here and help me change. It was then that Su Qingwan snapped back to reality, only to find that Lin Xian had already undressed, his muscular torso exposed before her, making her cheeks flush red. You. Just then, a voice came from outside. Young master, the family head is calling for you. Lin Xian glanced at Su Qingwan, who was still in a daze, and stuffed his clothes into her hands. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and help me dress, my father is waiting. Su Qingwan bowed her head slightly, her voice as soft as a mosquito's. Yes, young master. Despite her internal disdain, she quickly helped him dress. Lin Shen, satisfied with his neatly arranged clothes, nodded and prepared to meet his so-called father. Before leaving, he turned suddenly to Su Qingwan, who was still standing there lost in thought, and urged, "What are you spacing out for? Come on, I have to go too." Su Qingwan, still caught up in the strange sensation that had traveled through her fingertips earlier, was surprised to hear that she was to accompany him, something he had never allowed before. "As my little maid, isn't it normal for you to follow closely behind me at all times?" Su Qingwan felt humiliated inside but followed Lin Xin, glaring at him with resentment. Suddenly Lin Xian turned around and she quickly put on a smiling face. That's more like what a good maid should look like." Su Qingwan clenched her fist slightly. Soon, they arrived at the doorstep of the Lin family head. Lin Xian didn't hesitate and stepped right in, immediately seeing a burly, stern-faced, middle-aged man standing at the door, his adoptive father Lin Zhang. As soon as he arrived, Lin Zheng frowned slightly and spoke in a deep voice, "Xian, I know you're hurting inside, and I understand what an F-level ability means. I know what you're thinking." Seeing no sign of despair on Lin Xian's face, he thought he was just putting on a brave front and said with some heartache, "Xian, don't worry. Your father won't abandon you just because you've awakened an F-level ability. You don't have to worry about me looking down on you for it. I'm not that kind of person." After saying this, he even stepped forward to pat Lin Xian on the shoulder, symbolically wiping away a tear. Lin Xian was slightly moved. According to the typical plot of novels, even his own father from the Lin family should have looked down on him. Father Lin Xian began slowly, wanting to say something, but Lin Zhang waved his hand, a look of understanding on his face. "Xian, no need to speak. Rest assured, I have prepared 100,000 top-grade Qi blood pills for you, so what if it's an F-grade? My son Lin Zhang's son will never lack resources. Isn't it just a warrior? I'll stack them up for you." Lin Xian felt a bit embarrassed. 100,000 Qi blood pills and all top-grade at that. His father really spoiled him. "Father, actually your son isn't as incapable as you think," Lin Xian whispered secretly to Lin Jing, edging closer to his ear. "Actually, besides awakening the F-grade ability, I've also awakened the ancient holy body." "Ancient holy body?" Lin Jing suddenly exclaimed, causing Su Qingwan, who had been standing by the side, to shift her thoughts. Ancient holy body. Her face remained expressionless, but inside a storm was brewing. How could it be possible? How could this terrible person awaken the ancient holy body? She remembered that in her previous life Lin Xian had died quickly. If he truly had the ancient holy body, he shouldn't have remained so obscure. Watching his father's shocked expression, Lin Xian with a steady face said, "Should keep it down. I'm afraid if some villains hear about it, they might get jealous and want to kill me." "What then?" "Oh right. Lin Zhang, taking in Lin Xian's serious demeanor, began to believe him. After checking that there were only the three of them around, he breathed a sigh of relief. "Three?" His gaze slowly turned to Su Qingwan, who was all ears, her eyes narrowing slightly. Su Qingwan immediately felt a chill run down her spine, growing nervous. "No worries, Qingwan is my little maid, one of us," Lin Zhang said, seemingly to prove his earlier claim was true. Then he asked, "Father, how many Qi blood pills do you currently have on you?" 100,000. Why? Lin Zhang took out a ring, somewhat puzzled. Lin Xian took it, pulled out a Qi blood pill, and without a word popped it into his mouth. "Xianer, you mustn't spit it out. You must run the heart method when ingesting Qi blood pills, especially top-grade ones, or you'll explode and die." Lin Zhang's face was filled with anxiety, while Su Qingwan felt a surge of satisfaction. "Explode? Let this scoundrel die." It was just a pity about her divine fragment. However, the next moment, both heard Lin Xian confidently say, "Explode and die? It's just a top-grade Qi blood pill. How can it harm my body, which has battled through wars for years?" With that, he crazily grabbed more pills from the ring, 1 to 10 until 100. Lin Xian felt his body reaching some sort of limit. If he continued, even the truth might not save him. He stopped, savoring the changes emanating from deep within his body, as a warm current slowly permeated every part of him. At this moment, Lin Zhang was in complete disbelief, his mouth wide open as if he could fit an entire bed inside. He had never imagined that his son would actually awaken the ancient holy body, a sacred physique of which there was only one other in the great Daxia Empire, and that individual was a man who stood at the pinnacle of Blue Star. "My dear, do you see? I told you Xianer wouldn't let us down." After saying this, Lin Zhang's face for once showed a trace of relief, with tears, as the family pressure he had carried for many years seemed to vanish at that moment. Meanwhile, Su Qingwan looked as if she had swallowed a bitter pill, her expression extremely unsightly. Now, she had no choice but to believe, as no ordinary person could survive after consuming 100 top-tier chi blood pills like that except for a holy body. However, she could not understand how someone who was so useless in his previous life could have become so formidable. Lin Xian exhaled a breath of turbid air, slowly feeling refreshed and constantly feeling strength surge within him. He felt as if he could kill a bull with his bare hands. Xianer, even though it's a holy body, are you sure absorbing so many chi blood pills won't harm you? Lin Zhang asked worriedly as he observed that Lin Xian's body showed no significant changes. Dad, have you forgotten that I possess the ancient holy body? Lin Xian replied. My body will adapt quickly, and it can even harness the full effects of these pills perfectly. As soon as he finished speaking, a crackling sound came from Lin Xian's body and some impurities started to exude slowly. Is this the purification unique to martial artists? Could it be Xianyu? Lin Zhang was so astonished that he was speechless. Su Qingwan shook her head secretly. No, it's impossible for Lin Xian to have advanced to a martial artist so quickly. This is the unique baptism of the Qi blood realm. Even she couldn't help but be internally shocked. There were 3 baptisms before the Qi blood realm, and even she in her previous life had only experienced 1. However, looking at the current situation, Lin Xian was very likely to complete all 3. No, it's the baptism of the Qi blood realm, worthy of being my son. Lin Zhang couldn't contain his joy any longer. He then placed his hands on Lin Xian's shoulders, bursting into ecstatic laughter as he discovered that Lin Xian's chi blood value had reached 30. Lin Zhang kept patting his shoulder, laughing wildly. Good, my son Lin Xian has the makings of a great emperor. Su Qingwan had thought that Lin Xian would now surely be arrogant, but instead he remained indifferent, which totally caught her off guard. Each of them had their thoughts when suddenly a knocking sound came. Lin Zhang straightened up and cleared his throat. Come in. As the door opened, Lin Jiping couldn't wait to speak. Uncle Miss Song from the Song family, but his voice stopped abruptly as if someone had cut his vocal cords. This was because Lin Jiping had seen someone he thought he would never see again. Lin Xian, how could he still be alive? Lin Jiping seemed to have his throat seized, his pupils shrinking instantly, watching Lin Xian's sinister smile filled with fear. But then his eyes were covered with deep hatred. What exactly happened? Lin Zhang saw Lin Jiping suddenly speechless, and an unintentional aura of authority enveloped him. Lin Jiping trembled, his forehead covered in cold sweat, worrying about Lin Xian exposing his crimes. He stammered, Patriarch, Miss Song from the Song family is waiting outside. She wants to break off the engagement. Upon hearing the words break off the engagement, Lin Zhang suddenly erupted in authority, sending Lin Jiping flying out of the door. How dare you? He scolded. Matters of engagement are not child's play. Moreover, this is a betrothal arranged by our ancestors since childhood. Lin Zhang looked outside at Lin Jiping, who was dusting himself off, and asked sternly, did Song Ming initiate this? No, it was Miss Song Yanyan from the Song family who proposed this, and she is waiting at our Lin family's front gate. She said she will keep standing there until she sees you. Lin Jiping replied respectfully, but his eyes gleamed with triumph when he looked at Lin Xian. Originally he had planned to ask his father to transfer the marriage arrangement to himself. Now that Lin Xian was not dead, he wanted to see Lin Xian humiliated. How absurd! How can she, a junior, meddle in the marriage arrangement? Lin Zhang's face filled with anger, ready to go out and teach the young girl a lesson. However, Lin Xian stopped him, shook his head and smiled. She's just a spoiled and unreasonable girl, not worth your personal intervention, father. I'll handle this. The marriage arrangement is between her and me, and it's only right that I deal with it. No matter my decision, father, you will support me. Lin Zhang nodded gently, his eyes full of encouragement. Qingwan, bring paper and pen, Lin Xian suddenly said. Su Qingwan didn't know what he was planning but complied quickly, bringing the requested items. They then saw Lin Xian writing something on the paper. Soon after he finished, Lin Zhang saw the 2 large characters on the paper and felt a stir in his heart, but ultimately he couldn't help but agree. Su Qingwan was slightly curious, and she glimpsed the 2 characters on the paper to divorce. Outside the Lin family's gate, Song Yanyan had a stubborn look on her face, her arrogance obvious, overshadowing her pure and sweet appearance. Song Yanyan of the Song family, seeking an audience with the Lin family patriarch. Her firm, arrogant voice echoed in front of the Lin family's main gate, attracting many young nobles of the capital to gather around. Hey, isn't that Miss Song Yanyan from the Song family? What is she doing looking for the patriarch of the Lin family? I heard she and Lin Xian, the eldest young master of the Lin family, are betrothed. I bet it has something to do with that. It's said that Song Yanyan has awakened an SSS tier supernatural ability, the Sword Heart Clarity, while Lin Xin awakened the lowest F tier ability. I guess Song Yanyan is likely here to break off the engagement. Break off the engagement? Indeed, it's rumored that Song Yanyan, besides being spoiled and unreasonable, is also extremely proud. She definitely wouldn't want to be tied to a useless person. At that moment, everyone murmured and began to quietly await the unfolding of an intriguing scene. Song Yanyan of the Song family was suddenly interrupted by a creaking sound, and soon she saw a man slowly emerging. This man had an extraordinary demeanor, his eyes filled with curiosity about the world and a slight mocking smile. On his face, it was Lin Xian, who had already heard Song Yanyan's cold voice. Now, seeing those proud eyes, he immediately became interested. He didn't mind teaching this arrogant girl a lesson. Who are you? I want to see the head of the Lin family, Song Yanyan demanded, glaring at Lin with dissatisfaction in her eyes. So you are Song Yanyan? Lin Xian stared at her boldly, then said teasingly, my fiancé? Realizing his identity, Song Yanyan looked at Lin Xian's undisguised gaze with disgust. Are you that awakened F-level waste? Her voice was loud, her graceful neck held high. She continued, listen well, I, Song Yanyan, am here today to break off our engagement. Suddenly, the surroundings fell silent, only to boil over in the next moment. The news that the Lin and Song families were breaking off the engagement quickly spread throughout the city, attracting members of other families to watch the drama unfold. Behind Lin Xin, Lin Jiping watched him maliciously, wishing for Song Yanyan to humiliate him severely. Su Xingwan followed Lin Xian, observing everything with a calm demeanor. Lin Xian was unfazed by the commotion around him. Looking at Song Yanyan, he smiled slightly. Miss Song, you are so beautiful. If you shout too loudly and your voice becomes hoarse, making you sound unpleasant, who would want you then? Enough talk. I am here today to dissolve our marriage contract. Song Yanyan suddenly stiffened, realizing her originally light and girlish voice had turned hoarse and rough, giving a strong sense of discomfort. What's going on? Song Yanyan's eyes flickered with surprise. She glanced at Lin, a man she deemed unworthy, wondering if he was responsible. Impossible, he's just an F level. It must be because I've been shouting too long. Yet her eyes were filled with cold fury and her voice was hoarse as she continued, Lin, now you have awakened an F level ability while I am at SSS level. If it weren't for your status as the eldest young master of the Lin family, you wouldn't even be qualified to speak to me. And as for that marriage contract, don't even think about it. She tried to adjust her voice to make it smoother. Lin Xian, observing her pure face producing such an old husky voice, couldn't help but want to laugh. His laughter prompted the young nobles around to laugh as well, and soon the entire street in front of the Lin residence was filled with muffled laughter. See, everyone? You really need to take good care of your throat, or you'll end up sounding like Miss Song here, like a croaking toad. Lin Xian's lips curled slightly as he added, how unpleasant that sounds. Everyone present could no longer hold back their laughter. Even Su Qingwan chuckled lightly, thinking to herself that this guy was really mean. Only Lin Jiping couldn't find anything amusing at all. Song Yanran, clearly unaccustomed to such scenes, flushed with embarrassment. She had intended to see Lin Xian make a fool of himself, but how had she become the clown instead? In a moment of angry embarrassment, she lashed out, Lin Xian, how dare you insult me? You, a nobody raised without a mother, dare to insult me? I bet your unseen mother must be worthless too, for she gave birth to someone as worthless as you. Song Yanran's face turned crimson, and she had never been so publicly humiliated before, her anger burying the last of her rationality. When she saw Lin Xian suddenly stop smiling, the anger inside her dissipated instantly. This loser is really scared. She scoffed coldly, then lifted her pale neck proudly and said, of course I, Song Yanran, am not someone who bullies the weak. I'll give you 1 month. In the trial battle a month from now, if you can defeat me, I won't call off the marriage, otherwise you'll have to obediently break it off. As soon as these words were out, the spectators couldn't sit still anymore. Everyone knew that the difference between an F grade and an SSS grade ability was like heaven and earth. Lin Xian winning her in a trial battle a month later seemed like a fool's dream. The outcome of this bet was already decided. Lin Xian was doomed to lose. Song Yanran wanted to humiliate him openly. Hearing the continuous murmurs around her, Song Yanran felt a surge of satisfaction. She wanted to thoroughly humiliate Lin Xian for making her a laughingstock in front of everyone earlier. Hey, say something, she said, getting angrier as Lin Xian remained silent, her voice rough and agitated. Are you done talking? Lin Xian slowly approached her, stopping just a foot away. Song Yanran didn't understand what he intended to do, but then she suddenly felt a sharp slap on her face. The world seemed to plunge into darkness for her, and she felt a burning pain on her cheek. you dare to hit me?" Song Yenran stared at him incredulously, a bright red handprint appearing on her face. A woman not only insulted her future husband but even his mother. Just for that, hitting you is getting off lightly, Lin Xian thought. Song Yenran's insults had not only angered him but even stirred the consciousness that lingered from his original self. He had thought that, like his original self, he wouldn't care about anything, but the intense anger was real and unexpected. Lin Xian was a person who greatly respected his parents, and having transmigrated here, he couldn't deny these parents either. He wouldn't allow anyone to insult them. Feeling that it wasn't enough, while Song Yenran was still stunned, Lin Xian sneakily slapped her again. "Slap? How dare you hit me? Even my father has never hit me." Song Yenran's eyes brimmed with tears as she staggered back, her face the picture of aggrievement evoking sympathy. But Lin Xian was not swayed by her display. He looked at her coldly. "Not only did I hit you, I am also going to divorce you. You are so spoiled and unreasonable. You do not deserve to be my fiancé." Song Yenran's eyes widened with shock and anger. Upon hearing Lin Xian's threat of divorce, she could no longer contain her humiliation. Trembling with rage, she glared venomously at Lin Xian, and suddenly a long sword appeared in her hand. With a swoosh, the blade was drawn, pointing directly at Lin Xian's face. "I'll kill you, you idiot." A chilling coldness burst from the blade, nearly piercing Lin Xian's head. "Be careful, young master," Su Qingwan cried out, worried, thinking, "Hurry, stab him." Lin Xian waved his hand with a faint smile. "No worries, 2 fingers are enough." As he spoke, he caught the tip of the sword between 2 fingers. Song Yenran's face showed surprise as she found her sword immovably caught. How is this possible? He's clearly a good-for-nothing. He must have secretly taken some kind of strength pill. Song Yenran thought disdainfully, pulling back her sword forcefully while secretly gathering her internal energy, unleashing a powerful and domineering sword aura from within her. That sword aura enveloped her entire body and eventually converged into the blade. She truly has a triple S grade clear sword heart, such a powerful sword aura. Someone suddenly exclaimed. "Lin, unaware of what pill you took to catch my sword, but if you think that's all I have, then I assure you, you're going to suffer a lot." With those words, Song Yenran raised her sword again, her fierce sword aura wildly rampaging, continuously eroding the surrounding air. The sword aura even attempted to devour Lin Xian's flesh and spirit, causing Lin Xian to internally marvel, while a bold idea suddenly formed in his mind. "Don't hide it, I too am a swordsmanship prodigy." Watching Lin Xian's mysterious demeanor, Song Yenran's eyes filled with disdain and disgust, and she sneered. "You, a wastrel who indulges in wine and women all day, a swordsmanship prodigy? Stop insulting the art of swordsmanship." Lin Xian ignored Song Yenran's insults, although he did not feel any immediate change in himself. He was not surprised. Staring at Song Yenran's shapely figure, he cheekily said, "Speaking of which, I should thank Miss Song. If it weren't for experiencing your sword aura, I wouldn't have realized that I actually possess a high talent in swordsmanship." What kind of sword intent is this? Swoosh, and I understood. In fact, he hadn't gleaned any insight from her sword aura at all, but he wasn't worried because the words of truth would automatically grant him understanding. As soon as Lin Xian finished speaking, whether it was an illusion or not, Song Yenran actually felt another sword aura besides her own. This sword aura seemed to originate from the same source as hers but seemed slightly superior. As she puzzled over this, she suddenly noticed that Lin Xian's fingertips were filled with a fierce sword aura. He had actually truly comprehended the sword intent. Why should he, an F-rank nobody, instantly comprehend the sword intent just by glancing at her own? And even more infuriating, his sword intent was not inferior to hers. Song Yenran's spirit nearly shattered under the weight of her disbelief and resentment. She was unwilling to accept this reality. Behind Lin Xian, Su Qingwan stood frozen, her gaze fixed on Lin, lost in thought. What was that in Lin Xian's hand? Sword intent? Impossible. He had merely glimpsed at Song Yenran's sword intent and had understood it instantly. Was mastering sword intent supposed to be this easy nowadays? Even Song Yenran, with her SSS rank enlightened sword heart, hadn't grasped it this quickly. It seemed that when fate closed a door on Lin, it opened a window. He was no longer the useless person he once was. Listening to the continuous praises for Lin Xian from those around her, jealousy and anger swiftly clouded Song Yenran's heart. No longer able to maintain her composure, her eyes filled with murderous intent as she lunged at Lin Xian. Die. Sensing the murderous intent coming his way, Lin Xian remained calm. Feeling the sword intent pulsating at his fingertips, he could even control its form at will. With a mere thought, the sword intent took shape, transforming into a sword that firmly blocked Song Yenran's attack. Sword intent materialized into form. How was this possible? He had just comprehended the sword intent, right? Such terrifying comprehension abilities were perhaps only matched by the legendary sword sage of China, Lin Xian, the young master of the Lin family? Interesting. Not far from the duo, Xiao Molian watched the sword form from Lin Xian's sword intent, his eyes twinkling with a peculiar gleam. Impossible, I possess an SSS rank enlightened sword heart and yet haven't comprehended it. How could you, a mere nobody, have done so? It must be fake. Song Yenron's spirit completely collapsed, unable to fathom how she, so proud and proficient, could be defeated in her proudest domain by someone with merely an F rank ability. Miss Song, getting so angry isn't good for you. What if it affects your health? Lin Xian said as he continuously parried her attacks, his tone laced with helplessness. Stop your nonsense, you a worthless nobody, I must kill you. Before she could finish her sentence, Song Yenran felt a thick liquid in her throat and then spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Lin Xian stepped back, touched his forehead, and sighed. Didn't I tell you? It's not good for a girl to lose her temper like this. Tisk, look at this blood. It's quite red. Song Yenran wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, her heart filled with confusion. How could this be? Could it really be that she must not get angry? She shook her head in an instant, convinced that her weakness was due to her sleepless night spent comprehending the essence of the sword. Her hatred for Lin Xian grew stronger and the vital energy in her body began to surge uncontrollably. Lin Xian, you useless fool. So what if you have comprehended the sword's form? I have the sword's momentum. Do you have that? As soon as she finished speaking, Lin Xian felt the vital energy within her expanding, her aura climbing steadily, even faintly surpassing his, who had already reached a blood level of 30. Sword momentum. It is indeed sword momentum, someone exclaimed, recognizing the rarity of such an SSS tier ability. Sword momentum? What is that? Another person asked, puzzled. Unlike the sword's essence, the sword's momentum is even harder to comprehend because it acts upon the vital energy, enhancing a warrior's vitality levels. For most people who have just awakened their abilities, their blood levels are usually around 0 to 10, but her sword momentum has forcefully increased her blood level to 30 or even higher. For Lin Xian, who had just awakened and was still adapting to his abilities even with his sword form, it might be hard to withstand her attacks, not to mention that Song Yenran also possessed the sword's essence. Now my blood level has reached 35. Even if you can transform using the sword's essence, how can you harm my physical body? Song Yenran burst out again, even leaving deep footprints on the ground as she clenched her teeth and whispered, die. Lin Xian stared at the extraordinary momentum surrounding her, his eyes filled with surprise and delight. She was unwittingly providing him with more rewards. Lin Xian met her attack, marveling at the immense force transmitted from her sword, astonished by how magical the sword's momentum was, enhancing her vitality so significantly. Your blood level? Impossible. The sword in Song Yenran's hand trembled slightly as she refused to believe it. His vitality was only slightly less than hers. How could this be? It was only the second day since his awakening, and even the most suitable SSS tier abilities for cultivating blood levels shouldn't have allowed him to reach a level of 30 so quickly, not to mention that Lin Xian's awakened ability was considered the lowest and F tier. Sensing what Song Yenran might be thinking, Lin Xian elegantly parried her sword techniques while whispering in her ear, Miss Song, how does it feel to be so humiliated by someone you called trash? As if he had read her mind, Song Yenran's proud gaze crumbled instantly, her eyes filling with tears of frustration. However, Lin Xian had no intention of letting her off easily. Such arrogance needed to be thoroughly chastised to be memorable, especially since he hadn't forgotten that she had come to break off their engagement. Honestly, I should thank you, he said with a confident and smug smile on his face as Song Yenran felt a sense of foreboding. Lin Xian continued, if you hadn't come to show off these treasures, I might never have discovered that I'm a swordsmanship prodigy. As he spoke, he revealed that after observing her sword momentum, something clicked inside him and he had unexpectedly begun to grasp the threshold of sword momentum himself. Feeling an odd sensation gradually spreading across his body, Lin Xian suddenly smiled at Song Yenran and said, Yenran, isn't this strange? Could it be that I am actually a swordsmanship genius? After speaking, Lin Xian no longer concealed his aura, which shockingly became similar to Song Yenran's, and his vital energy began to rise rapidly. Song Yenran's face was filled with despair and confusion as she murmured, impossible, impossible, until Lin Xian's vital energy finally seemed to stabilize around a value of 60. Can everyone feel it? Lin Xian's vital energy has actually reached 60. Didn't we all just awaken our abilities yesterday? Why is my vital energy only at 2? If I had a vital energy of 60-inch, I would even be willing to go to Kyoto Ability University. Are you serious? You're just grabbing whatever you can. Kyoto Ability University is the best ability school in Huaxia, and with your sea-level ability, I think there's no need for you to even participate in the trial battle a month from now. You might as well just stick to turning screws. I'm off to my morning shift. As the two argued, suddenly someone shouted, "Sword momentum, it's sword momentum!" Just like Lin Xian said, he really grasped the sword momentum in a flash. Such terrifying talent in swordsmanship, even the current sword saint might not be capable of this. Is this really the same person who was once known as the #1 debauched young master of Kyoto? Outside the Lin family's gate, more and more young men gathered, most with skepticism in their eyes. Impossible, why is this waste a swordsmanship genius? Song Yanran suddenly stopped what she was doing and her body started to stagger backwards, her face pale as death, mumbling something under her breath. She didn't even notice when the sword in her hand had fallen until something whizzed past her face, causing her to look up. Her hair, previously tied up, cascaded down her shoulders, gently swaying with the sword's energy. Only then did she realize that the sword had somehow ended up in Lin Xian's hands, who then said, "Song Yanran, today I, Lin Xian, will divorce you." A large piece of paper suddenly appeared before Song Yanran, accompanied by a sword that fiercely stabbed into the ground at her feet. The two large characters on the paper, though already anticipated, made her shiver uncontrollably, anger rising in her heart only to be replaced by a profound sense of powerlessness. She had been divorced by a waste. The immense disgrace swept over her entire body, causing her to tremble violently, her eyes lifeless as her pride was shattered bit by bit and her sword intent involuntarily revealed itself, showing signs of losing control. Lin Xian frowned, clearly not expecting this individual's mental resilience to be so poor. He looked as if he was about to succumb to madness, his Dao heart nearly shattered. Just as Lin Xian was about to say something, a powerful aura suddenly immobilized him. "Even if my daughter Yan Yan broke off the engagement, you shouldn't have shattered her Dao heart." A middle-aged man stepped out of the void, his eyes filled with anger as he looked at Lin Xian. "Master Song, during the entire incident I merely slapped her twice in a fit of emotion. Besides that, I didn't touch her at all. You saw it all," Lin Xian argued, struggling against the overwhelming aura, refusing to kneel. Just when he felt a bit relieved, another wave of immense pressure struck him, leaving him gasping for air, veins on his forehead bulging violently. Even words of truth seemed useless. Lin Xian was about to kneel when suddenly an explosion sounded in the air and the oppressive force vanished. "Song Ming, you old man, after all this time you come to bully my son?" A commanding voice rang out from behind Lin Xian. He knew it was his adoptive father arriving. With a snort, seeing Lin Zheng arrive, Song Ming had no choice but to stop. He quickly went to stabilize Song Yanyan's spirit, feeling quite frustrated inside. Indeed, as Lin Xian said, he didn't actually harm Yanyan, the closest he got was whispering in her ear. However, it was indeed Lin Xian who had caused her current state. But how did this boy know I was watching all along? Right from the start, he had been silently observing the drama unfold. Initially, he even fantasized about the engagement being broken off, not wanting his daughter to marry someone deemed a waste due to his F-grade special ability. Unexpectedly, Lin Xian, though an F-grade, unwittingly awakened a talent for swordsmanship, not only deeply embarrassing Yan Yan but also deciding to divorce her, and almost destroyed her Dao heart in the process. Yet he couldn't fix this detestable brat in the end. Song Ming felt extremely distressed. If only he had known, he would have had someone watch over her. Gazing at the divorce decree under Yan Yan's feet, Song Ming's frustration grew, though it was just a verbal agreement by their ancestors. However, seeing that decree still provoked his anger, yet thinking that all this was indeed caused by his own daughter, he sighed. He then checked the changes in Song Yanyan's body, his face changing instantly. How is her Dao heart still slowly shattering? Meanwhile, Song Yanyan sat on the ground, her eyes lifeless, mumbling the word useless over and over. Song Ming coldly looked at Lin Zhang, wanting to say something, but then saw Lin Xian shake his head. "Master Song, Miss Song is just unable to accept this loss to her pride for the moment. Her Dao heart will not shatter." Enraged, Song Ming snapped, "Nonsense. Can't you see what you've done to my daughter, Lin Zhang? If anything happens to my daughter, I, Song Ming, will definitely..." Song Ming paused mid-sentence as he suddenly noticed his daughter's spiritual heart gradually stabilizing. Lowering his head, he saw that Song Yanran had fainted at some unknown time. "Definitely what?" Lin Xian scratched his ear, desperately trying to lean closer to hear Song Ming's words. Song Ming, observing the smirks on the faces of Lin Xian and his father, felt even more aggrieved. He snorted coldly, lifted Song Yanran in his arms, and a crack appeared in the void. Before entering, He glanced back, his eyes full of threats as if to say, "Don't let me catch you messing up, kid." Then he turned to Lin Zhang and said, "Old Lin, have you thought this through? This matter is just a scuffle between the kids. Do you really want to call off the engagement with my Song family?" A scuffle? Lin Zhang scoffed. "Old man, do you really take me for a fool? Your daughter came to my Lin family to break off the engagement so openly, and you claim to be unaware? If it weren't for my son's exceptional talent, he might have been severely humiliated by your daughter." Song Ming's face turned ashen as Lin Zhang continued, "Moreover, with things having reached this point, do you think the engagement is still appropriate? We might as well call it off, we can always form another alliance later." Song Ming, looking at his daughter's pitiful state in his arms, felt a headache coming on. His daughter was good in many ways, but her stubborn temperament and excessive pride had led to this setback, which could be seen as a lesson for her. He nodded slightly and then disappeared into the void with Song Yenran. "Xian, I never thought you'd be a genius in the way of the sword. You've really given your dad a big surprise." As soon as Song Ming left, Lin Zhang couldn't wait to express his joy. Lin Xian, however, showed a look of disdain and waved his hand dismissively. "Old man, you need to learn to keep your cool. It's just some sword intent and momentum. Is it really something to make such a fuss over?" Yes, you're right. My vision is indeed short-sighted. It's just sword intent and momentum after all. My son has the makings of a great emperor." Lin Zhang laughed wildly, causing a stir among the young nobles of the capital. "What? Did the Lin family head just say something?" He said Lin Xian has the makings of a great emperor. Nonsense, just mastering sword intent and momentum and he dreams of becoming a great emperor. Go dream on. It's easy for you to say, why don't you try to grasp it in a flash? In the thousands of years of Blue Star's history, only 10 great emperors have emerged. How dare Lin Xian aspire to be one so easily? Maybe he has also awakened an ancient holy physique. Lin Zhang didn't realize that because of his words Lin Xian would be the talk of the town tomorrow. The drama soon ended and Lin Xian was pulled back to his room by Lin Zhang, who gave him a storage ring that contained the most powerful techniques of the Lin family. As for martial arts and the like, they could only be cultivated after advancing to a martial artist. The moment Lin Xian left the room, he saw Lin Jiping looking down, yet his eyes were maliciously glaring at him. With a faint smile on his face, as if Lin Jiping had never appeared, he said to Su Qingwan, "It's getting late, Qingwan, go prepare some food and wait obediently for this young master to return and enjoy it." Although Su Qingwan was not pleased inside, she still nodded gently and hurried away. Watching Lin Xian's indifferent demeanor, Lin Jiping felt a chill in his eyes and his heart became even more uncertain about Lin Xian's thoughts. Cold sweat quickly drenched his back. Finally, he couldn't help but speak. "Brother Lin, it's all a misunderstanding. It's all that fool Xiao Mei's doing. She's the one who killed you. None of this has anything to do with me." Watching Lin Jiping's face, Lin Xian still had a smile. "Rest assured, I've long forgotten about that matter. Jiping, you really shouldn't worry about that. What you should be thinking about now is how you're going to kill me, right?" Suddenly panic appeared on Lin Jiping's face, but then Lin Xian stepped in front of him. "If you don't kill me, you'll always feel uneasy, right? You'll be worried day and night that I might kill you. Isn't that right?" The smile on Lin Xian's lips seemed devilish to Lin Jiping. Indeed, Lin Xian did not plan to kill him just like that. Instead, he wanted to make him live in fear every day, struggling like a bug, only to ultimately die in utter despair. "Try hard to kill me, my foolish Odudu. It would be more interesting that way." Lin Xian laughed loudly as he left, leaving Lin Jiping clenching his teeth so hard that his palms almost bled, his eyes filled with dark hatred. Back in Lin Xian's room, Su Xingwan had already prepared the meal, eagerly awaiting Lin Xian's return. Meanwhile, Lin Xian was pondering on the road. After so many tests, he had roughly understood the triggering conditions of the true words. First, the true words could not fabricate non-existent facts. For example, he couldn't claim to have the ancient holy body since he had no connection whatsoever with it, so even the true words couldn't transform him into possessing an ancient holy body, which obviously made no sense. He also discovered that the tolerable range of the true words seemed quite broad. Even if he was completely unfamiliar with the way of the sword, the true words could still help him grasp the essence and even the momentum of the sword. Yet, despite the powerful true words, they were merely an ornament in front of absolute power, as he vividly remembered the helplessness in front of the head of the Song family. Fortunately, he had a doting father and all he lacked now was time. He firmly believed that one day even a powerful figure like the head of the Song family would ultimately be no match for a single finger of his. This thought made Lin Xian look forward to the future. What a wonderful world indeed. Then he pushed open the door and was greeted by Su Qingwan's smiling face and a sumptuous dinner. Having been through so much, he was indeed quite hungry. Lin Shen looked at the sumptuous feast on the table and, without a second thought, sat down to eat heartily. As he devoured the food in front of him, a gentle voice cautioned, "Young master, please eat slowly, be careful not to choke." Suddenly, a cup of fine wine appeared in her hand, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Young master, this wine is specially fetched for you, please enjoy it at your leisure." Su Qingwan, seemingly not fully at ease, carried the wine slowly towards Lin Xian. She was determined to have Lin Xian drink this wine, for it contained a potent sleeping powder given by the system, which could knock out even a being with an ancient holy physique, leaving them utterly weak and at the mercy of others. A cold sneer crossed Su Qingwan's mind. Even if you have awakened the ancient holy physique in this life, you are still at the mercy of this empress. As Su Qingwan indulged in her fantasies, she suddenly felt her foot slip and she began falling uncontrollably towards Lin Xian. With a thud accompanied by the sound of the wine cup spilling from her hand, Su Qingwan found herself crashing into something incredibly sturdy. "Oh Qingwan, while I am well aware that my charm is enough to bewitch thousands of young maidens, you don't have to be so desperate. Such matters can surely be discussed in the dead of night," Lin Xian quipped, amused as he suddenly felt a soft, jade-like body in his arms and his expression turned slightly bizarre. Su Qingwan's face flushed with heat, and she cursed under her breath. Shameless. She tried to struggle to her feet only to slip again on the spilled wine, unable to stand. "Let go of me," she finally burst out. "What a thing to say, Qingwan, you really need to adjust your proud temper, clearly throwing yourself into my arms, yet you insist on distorting the truth. You deserve a spanking." As he spoke, Lin Xian raised his right hand and smacked her rounded buttocks. Ah! Su Qingwan's cheeks turned red and her ears pink, a tingling sensation spreading through her, leaving her body limp and devoid of strength. Murderous intent filled her eyes as she mustered all her strength to break free from Lin Xian's embrace. Lin Xian looked at her aggrieved expression, his eyes suddenly filling with pity, but when he noticed the liquid residue on her lips, he felt something wet on his chest. Looking down, he realized that the clumsy maid had spilled the wine all over him. Just as he was about to explode in anger, he noticed Su Qingwan's body swaying unsteadily. As a sense of dizziness began to cloud her mind, Su Qingwan realized that her lips had accidentally made contact with the sleeping powder. Horrified, her pupils filled with panic and fear, she dared not imagine what might happen to her once she passed out. The thought that this lecherous man might do something terrible to her was unbearable. She resolved that if that were the case, she would fight him to the death. Suddenly a tear formed in her eyes and her body began to sway like a branch about to snap in a storm. Her thoughts became blurred and she slowly lost consciousness, collapsing towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian quickly caught her, feeling the heavy weight in his arms, his face showing a hint of dissatisfaction. "Really, as a maid, is it proper to just fall asleep like this? Or have I been overworking you?" He looked out at the night sky, a plan forming in his mind. With a light chuckle, he carried her to the bed and tucked her in, then sat down with a satisfied expression. "Well, this is not bad. Now let's see what the cheap old man's techniques are all about." He returned to his chair and began to study the storage ring. He examined the storage ring and discovered inside it 3 SSS grade techniques. The Sun-Moon Brilliance technique, which refines qi and blood by absorbing the essence of the sun and moon. The 9 Heaven Stars technique, which condenses qi and blood by drawing on the power of the stars, and the Freedom Extreme Intention technique, focused on strengthening the physical body. Lin Xian's eyes lit up. These are the Lin family's most powerful techniques and I want all 3, but he could only choose one, which made him sigh with regret. How wonderful it would be to cultivate all 3 at once. Suddenly his face brightened, unable to hide his smile any longer. But why not cultivate all 3? If I want to, I will. Without hesitation, he spread out all 3 techniques in front of him, and in an instant they were assimilated into his mind, as a favored transmigrator. His speed of cultivating techniques was extraordinary, even when practicing 3 at the same time. Soon Lin Xian felt his qi and blood surge as the powers of the sun, moon and stars refined his internal energies, making them more robust and vigorous. Besides his qi and blood, Lin Xian also felt significant changes in his physical body. Every inch of his muscles and bones became firmer and stronger. Ah, this is truly exhilarating. He moved his body and realized that his qi and blood had reached a level of 40 without him noticing. Well, it seems sitting at home really does boost one's energy reserves. By now it was deep into the night, time for a good sleep. Lin Xian stretched lazily and looked at Su Qingwan, who was still in deep sleep. Bathed in the moonlight, she indeed looked more like a sleeping beauty. Observing her peaceful yet slightly troubled expression, he couldn't help but pinch her cheeks a few times. "Hey, wake up, young master wants to sleep now." Su Qingwan, groggy and reluctant, opened her eyes and glared at Lin Xian. Almost instantly, she became fully alert and began to check her condition. Finding that apart from some slight pain on her face and hips, even her clothes were intact, she was puzzled. How is it possible? This scoundrel didn't take advantage of her and, from the looks of it, even put her to bed to sleep? Impossible. How could this scoundrel be so kind-hearted? Yet the reality was right in front of her eyes, and Su Qingwan simply couldn't figure out Lin Xian's intentions. Could it be, had this villain finally developed a conscience, realizing at last how tough it was to be his maid? Humph, even so, I won't give up my intention to kill you. As Su Qingwan was lost in her thoughts, Lin Xian, smiling, reached under the quilt, immediately touching something warm, seemingly soft. Ah, not bad. Not bad. Winter is approaching, and you will be responsible for warming my bed from now on. Lin, suddenly feeling a large hand touch her chest, Su Qingwan instantly bristled, jumping straight out of bed. Then, hearing Lin Xian's words, she almost lost control of herself. Just as she thought, this scoundrel definitely had no good intentions. Was she just warming his bed? A great empress even warming his bed for the entire winter? Su Qingwan couldn't accept this. Her cheeks even began to twist slightly with indignation. However, as the strongest empress, she held back, vowing that once she rose to power she would trample the scoundrel mercilessly under her feet and let him know the true meaning of pain. Lin Xian looked at her slightly displeased. Su Qingwan hurriedly forced a flattering smile, saying, "It's my honor to serve you, young master. That's my good maid. All right, I'm going to sleep now, don't disturb me again." Lin Xian, feeling the residual warmth and faint scent in the quilt, soon closed his eyes. Having been in this world for half a day, he could finally have a good sleep. But the next moment, Su Qingwan's eyes filled with humiliation and murderous intent surged within her pupils. To dare treat the empress as a mere bed-warming maid, she must kill this scoundrel. After looking at his detestable face, she glanced around the room, noting that only the table seemed a viable place for sleep. As for the bed, she didn't even consider it. Su Qingwan would rather die than share a bed with this villain. She lay down on the table, but her eyes remained fixed on a dagger that Lin Xian had casually tossed aside after cutting fruit. After a while, moonlight gently bathed the dagger. Listening to Lin Xian's light snores, Su Qingwan, guided by the moonlight, quietly approached him. As she began to discern the villain's face more clearly, she could no longer suppress the anger in her heart. Die! She eagerly raised her arm, poised to stab Lin Xian, and just as she was about to succeed, Lin Xian unexpectedly turned over in his sleep. Su Qingwan suddenly doubted whether this guy was actually asleep at all, but after hearing his faint snoring, she still breathed a sigh of relief. It must be a coincidence. Undeterred, Su Qingwan quickly stabbed again, but Lin Xian dodged once more. Stab, dodge. She couldn't take it anymore and immediately pressed down on Lin Xian's body, determined to kill this idiot. Seeing that Lin Xian showed no signs of waking up, Su Qingwan was overjoyed inside, her face showing the look of someone avenging a great wrong as she viciously stabbed towards Lin Xian's throat. Just as Su Qingwan was about to succeed, the loose strands of her hair suddenly fell onto Lin Xian's face. Achoo! Startled, Su Qingwan felt her entire face covered with filth. Her brain went blank, and without another thought, she ran outside to the wash basin. Lin Xian slightly frowned, feeling a tickle in his nose, and opened his eyes to find the room empty except for himself. The little maid was nowhere to be seen. He only saw the door open and could faintly hear the bustling sound of running water outside. True to my loyal maid, not hesitating to wash her face to stay alert. She must be planning to guard me all night, he thought, touched, and quickly fell asleep again. Following that, Su Qingwan came back looking disheveled, far from the demeanor of an empress. To clean off Lin Xian's saliva, she had almost scrubbed her face raw. Su Qingwan, you are to be the strongest empress in the future. How can such a small difficulty stop you? You must endure. It won't be long before this idiot regrets his actions. Biting her teeth, Su Qingwan's fingers tightly clutched the dagger, forcing herself to calm down. Quietly sitting back at the table, her expression grew colder. Since she couldn't assassinate Lin for the time being, she decided to focus on her own cultivation. Having lived once more with all the memories of her past life as an empress, countless mental techniques, martial arts, and treasures remembered by heart, she was confident she could lead everyone, achieving the throne earlier and faster than in her previous life. Even if Lin Xian possessed the ancient holy body, she was confident she could crush him under her foot. The night passed without words, and soon the sound of birds chirping signaled another beautiful day. Lin Xian stretched lazily, his eyes filled with admiration as he glanced at Su Qingwan, still in meditation. "Qingwan, your dedication is enough. There's no need to guard me all night," he said. "Even when I'm asleep, no one can harm me." Su Qingwan raised an eyebrow. "Look at you, such big dark circles. If people see you outside, they might think I've been mistreating you," Lin Xian complained. Somewhat discontentedly, Inside, Su Qingwan was somewhat speechless. She had never found him so annoying before. Guarding him through the night? Nonsense. How thick can your face be? Of course, these were thoughts Su Qingwan kept to herself. Outwardly she kept a smiling face looking at Lin Xian. Very well, young master. Next, she proceeded to help Lin Xian wash and dress, comforting herself internally that one day she would make him pay back double. Even visualizing a few scenarios in her mind helped her endure. After everything was ready, Lin Xian did not forget that today was the first day of the martial arts trial class, open only to those who had awakened special abilities. Before setting out, Lin Zheng kept nagging incessantly. Lin Xian sighed inwardly. No matter which world one was in, parental nagging seemed inescapable. But then again, what about my adoptive mother? He realized he knew very little about her from his original memories. Generally, the more mysterious someone is, the more formidable they are. Perhaps his mother was some hidden great emperor. With a light smile, Lin Xian soon arrived at an imposing institution along with Su Qingwan, Kyoto University of Supernatural Abilities. Hey, what are you looking at? The trial class is over here. A voice suddenly interrupted Lin Xian's thoughts. Looking towards the direction of the voice, he noticed a small school nearby with an old plaque that read trial class. I see, brother, you carry yourself with distinction, certainly not from an ordinary family. But to think about getting into this top supernatural university in Kyoto, don't even dream about it. It's reserved for those from the 4 great families. With our inferior talents and resources, it's better not to harbor such thoughts, said a young man dressed in fine clothes, his demeanor proper, not resembling the typical Kyoto youth. Oh, is this your sister? She's beautiful. She is my maid, Lin Xian responded coolly. Maid? Brother, you must be joking. Who has a maid this beautiful? She's almost as pretty as Miss Song from the Song family, the young man remarked with a look of admiration when mentioning Miss Song. Su Qingwan, flattered by the compliment and seeing that Lin Xian made no further explanation, thought to herself that he still had some conscience, but in the next moment her expression turned icy. Qingwan, my shoulders are a bit sore. Just as they were about to enter, Lin Xian casually moved his shoulders, the implication clear. As more and more Kyoto youth arrived for the trial class, Su Qingwan's face fell, and any fleeting affection she might have felt vanished. This guy definitely doing this on purpose. Yes, young master. She still managed a forced smile as she began to massage Lin Xian's shoulders. Young master, is this comfortable? Su Qingwan asked through clenched teeth with a forced smile. The young man who had been speaking before was stunned at this sight, his jaw almost dropping. The gazes of others who had come for the trial class also turned towards Lin Xian. It was indeed because Su Qingwan was too eye-catching, such a beauty, acting like a maid massaging a man's shoulders. Who could stand such a contrast? Immediately a noble-looking man stepped forward, indignantly saying to Lin Xian, is this young lady being threatened? Just tell me, I am from the Shao family and I will ensure justice for you. As soon as the words were spoken, the crowd around them burst into discussion, mostly hurling insults, urging Lin Xian to release Su Qingwan. Lin Xian sneered and remained indifferent to the noise around him, continuing to enjoy the massage from Su Qingwan's delicate fingers. It wasn't until a noble-looking man blocked his path that the situation escalated. Hey, are you feeling guilty? Let this woman go, he demanded, then turned to Su Qingwan with a careless look of heroism, saying, don't be afraid, miss, I am here to save you. Suddenly, with a loud slap that shocked the onlookers, the man was sent flying by Lin Xian's palm. Lin Xian then glanced at the stunned crowd and asked, anyone else want to come and save her? The area fell into a silent awe. Lin Xian then left with a swish. No sooner had he departed than someone recognized his identity and exclaimed, isn't that Lin Xian, the young master of the Lin family? A man murmured to himself, good thing I didn't stand up for that woman. I knew this man was no ordinary person, he's the young master of the Lin family. It was rumored that although Lin Xian had awakened an F-grade special ability, he had defeated Song Yanyan, who possessed an SSS-grade sword heart. It was even said that he nearly shattered Song Yanyan's Dao heart. Soon Lin Xian arrived at his classroom, Class 1, which was also Su Qingwan's class. As soon as he entered, he saw many familiar faces. The moment Lin Xian appeared, several gazes turned toward him. He immediately spotted Song Baodan, who seemed to have shrunk in size but appeared larger than before, yet he still stood out awkwardly among the crowd. Lin Xian also noticed some old acquaintances like Lin Jiping and the charming woman next to him, Xiao Mei. Lin Xian's gaze lingered on her interestingly. This woman who had tried to kill him by sacrificing her virginity was likely to make the class very intriguing. Lin Xian chose a seat by the window and motioned for Su Qingwan to sit next to him. Perhaps because of the incident where Lin Xian defeated Song Yanyan, which had become well known throughout the city, or for some other reason no one dared to provoke him directly, Lin Xian was pleased with the peace. The classroom quickly filled up and everyone quietly waited for the teacher's arrival. During this time Lin Xian noticed not just 3 hostile gazes but also someone else secretly watching him. Glancing from the corner of his eye he saw a stranger with a face of striking features which piqued Lin Xian's curiosity. Soon the teacher arrived. "Hello everyone, I am Song Shirua and I will be your teacher for the next month." Lin Xian looked up to see a woman dressed in black silk with gold-rimmed glasses standing on the podium. Song Shirua calmly surveyed the 40 students in her class, pleased to know that this batch included 2 students with SSS grade abilities. However, when her gaze landed on Lin Xian, she adjusted her glasses slightly. She had heard of Lin Xian as a notorious libertine, despite his reputed high talent in swordsmanship revealed yesterday. Song Shirua's eyes flickered with disdain. In contrast, when her eyes passed over Su Qingwan, they unconsciously showed appreciation. This is a promising talent, she thought. Now let me introduce you to the basics of special abilities. She adjusted her glasses once more and spoke seriously. In this world, everyone awakens to a supernatural ability at the age of 18. These abilities range from F grade to SSS grade, from weak to strong, and vary immensely. Some enhance the physical body, others summon elements, and there are even those who can connect with creatures from other worlds, among many other types. The level of one's ability also determines the speed of their cultivation. The higher the level, the more vigorous their vitality, and naturally, the faster their strength improves. A student suddenly asked from the audience, "Teacher, does this mean that those of us with lower grade abilities are inherently weaker than those with higher grades?" Song Shirua waved her hand dismissively and said sternly, "No, your ability level does not completely determine the upper limit of your strength. Besides supernatural abilities, if you have a talent in swords, knives or spears, you can also refine your vitality with unique intentions and momentum to become powerful." At this statement, many involuntarily turned their gazes towards Lin Xian. Of course, besides these, there is also the ancient holy physique. Those who awaken the ancient holy physique cultivate as naturally as fish swim in water, and it's said that awakening the holy physique is akin to possessing the makings of a great emperor, an emperor's stature. Everyone was acutely aware of the weight those words carried. Since the last emperor died, Blue Planet had not seen another for 500 years. As the audience murmured among themselves, Song Shirua spoke again. "In 1 month, the martial trial battle will take place, which will also be a decisive exam that shapes your future lives. In this world, martial prowess is revered. If you perform well in the trial battle a month from now and get into a good university, your life will change dramatically. Otherwise, no matter how high your status, you'll end up working mundane jobs or mining." It might have been his imagination, but Lin Xian felt that Song Shirua's gaze was fixed on him as she spoke. "Alright, next I will distribute several mental techniques to each of you, which will be particularly helpful for those who still lack such techniques." As she finished speaking, Lin Xian saw a mysterious glow in Song Shirua's eyes, and suddenly he felt something new in his mind. They were several A-grade mental techniques. He remembered that even A-grade techniques cost 100,000 on the market, while S-grade ones went for 1,000,000. Everyone's ability was different, and so was their choice of mental technique. For instance, those with ice elemental abilities would find ice attribute techniques more conducive to faster cultivation. With that, most began to close their eyes and carefully select the mental techniques from their minds. After everyone had made their selections, Song Shirua spoke again. "Very well, after selecting your martial arts techniques, the next month will be spent cultivating your chi and blood. Only when your chi and blood level reaches 90 or above will you be qualified to stand on the battlefield of the martial trials." Although Song Shirua didn't explicitly state it, everyone understood that if their chi and blood level didn't reach 90 within a month, it meant that the path of a martial artist wasn't suitable for them. They might as well go mine instead. "Alright, now let's move on to practical training," Song Shirua commanded coldly. "What? Practical training? How so?" Where the questions suddenly sprang up in everyone's minds. Seeing the puzzled expressions on everyone's faces, Song Shirua's face broke into a slight smile. Despite the beauty of her smile, it still unnervingly unsettled everyone. As Lin Xian looked into her deep blue eyes, a dark light suddenly burst forth, followed by a strong dizzying sensation invading his mind. What the heck? He began to see his classmates collapse one after another. Even Su Qingwan next to him started to stagger. Lin Xian felt something was amiss and whispered, "My mental strength is strong. Such tricks cannot confuse me." After he spoke, he felt a surge of clarity and the dizziness gradually dissipated, allowing him to directly gaze into those deep blue eyes. as those around him continued to fall. Soon only Su Qingwan, a man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes, and he were left resisting. But soon they too began to fall, leaving only Lin Xian still staring at those eyes. He couldn't help but admit they were quite captivating. If he wasn't aware of the current situation, Lin Xian might have even wanted to get a closer look at those eyes which shimmered like a starry sky. Seeing everyone down, Song Shiruo's face suddenly displayed an expression unlike her usual self. It was a mix of longing intermingled with a hint of madness. She was about to close her eyes when she suddenly noticed from the corner of her eye that there was still someone sitting by the window on the left side of the classroom. Song Shiruo's body trembled slightly, and then her expression stiffened as her gaze slowly shifted towards Lin Xian, their eyes locking instantly. A wave of humiliation surged through her heart. He must have seen. Lin Xian looked at her with a peculiar expression, beginning to ponder what she was really up to. Before he could think further, he noticed her eyes suddenly turned chillingly cold and menacing. "You saw it, right?" Lin Xian was about to speak when a sharp tearing sensation suddenly erupted in his mind, as if someone was stirring his brain. "Damn, what is this crazy woman up to?" Lin Xian cursed inwardly, his expression fierce. "Due to my strong mental resilience, this crazy woman's psychic attack is useless against me. In fact, it has only made my mental strength grow stronger." Still, despite his defiance, the pain and dizziness in his mind grew stronger, and he eventually passed out. In the classroom, only Song Shiruo remained standing at the podium, a sickly pallor creeping back over her face as she slowly closed her eyes. When she awoke again, Lin Xian found himself inexplicably abandoned in the wilderness, surrounded by lush trees and distant mountains visible from all corners. Lin Xian frowned slightly, questioning if this was an illusion. However, the realistic sensations from his skin suggested that the situation was more complex than it seemed. What exactly did that madwoman want to accomplish? Just as he pondered this, a curse suddenly broke the silence around him. "Damn, where am I? Is this still the capital?" Lin Xian looked around. Not one of the 40 people was missing, and piecing together the recent events, he surmised that this was likely the madwoman's doing. "What place is this?" People exchanged glances of confusion and fear. At that moment, a disturbance from afar caused the ground beneath them to tremble. The unknown environment coupled with prevailing fear soon had someone lying flat on the ground, trembling as they spoke. "I remember I was just in class. How did I end up in such a forsaken place? Could it be that we've been thrown into the barbaric lands?" The barbaric lands were known as a forbidden zone for humans, long occupied by demonic beasts. The mere mention of being cast into such a perilous place filled with beasts sent waves of panic through the group. Fear began to spread, and the air quickly filled with a tense and uneasy atmosphere. Lin Xian looked around and bent his ear to the ground. The tapping sound that struck his soul hinted at something approaching. "Qingwan, stay close to me," he instructed. Reluctantly, Su Qingwan moved to his side. From the distance, the low growls of animals could be heard, and soon packs of wild wolves began to materialize around them. A dark mass slowly closed in on them. Demons, demonic beasts, they are. Wolves, at least 100 of them, maybe even more. We really have been thrown into the barbaric lands. As the wolves growled and howled, their red eyes glaring like blades, panic ensued. People started to flee, shouting, "I don't want to die." However, before they could get far, a scream was heard, followed by a gruesome scene of a person being devoured by the wolves, their powers useless against the ferocious pack. This bloody spectacle halted any thoughts of escape among the group. Are people really dying? Suddenly, as wolves lunged into the crowd, several screams rang out. Yet, in these desperate moments, some managed to activate their unique abilities to fend off the wolves. But as more and more wolves attacked, the group's ability to resist began to falter. After all, most of these people had vitality around 10, and even dealing with solitary wolves with similar vitality was a challenge, let alone facing hundreds or thousands of them. "No, wait, this could very well be an illusion set up by Teacher Song." Suddenly, a man wearing glasses spoke up calmly amidst the chaos. "Rubbish. Can't I tell the difference between reality and an illusion? I just broke my arm and it hurts like hell. Would an illusion feel so real?" retorted a man with a broken arm, gritting his teeth in pain as he tried to fend off a hungry wolf with his remaining right arm. "Ah, no, my leg, don't bite."